And welcome everyone. I'm Len Vassos and I'm the Director of Development. And this morning I will take you through what's new in PxPlus. Over the past year, we've introduced a number of new features, enhancements, and integrations. And the goal of this session and other sessions over the next 3 days is to give you a clear picture of how PxPlus continues to evolve and how these updates can help you enhance and future-proof your applications. Okay, here I'm stuck. There we go. Sorry. Okay. We will begin, and with the agenda, we'll begin to review the major enhancements of the release. Next, we will review the language enhancements. Then we'll go over the graphical enhancements, where we'll highlight changes that help modernize the look and feel of your applications. Finally, we'll cover the new Create-based WebSphere Pages utility, which is the first step in transitioning Nomads panels into WebSphere Plus for web deployment. Okay, so let's now review the major enhancements. So one of the key enhancements for PxPlus 2025 was the .NET interface. This enhancement allows us to integrate with .NET, and it opens up PxPlus to the vast .NET ecosystem. There are two ways to interact with .NET. You can use a program and create a .NET object, or you can use Nomads to create the object. You'll be learning more about the .NET interface at the presentation that's following this one. The new JSON object provides a clearer and more streamlined way to manipulate JSON data compared to traditional associated arrays. The addition of the new methods simplify the data manipulation. Again, you can learn more at the JSON object presentation that Aaron will be doing, and will be on, I believe, Thursday, the first one on Thursday. To ensure PxPlus remains secure and up to date, we continue to update several of the core security modules. These updates strengthen compliance with current standards, improve compatibility with modern platforms, and protect against known vulnerabilities. So let's take a look at some of these impacted modules. We updated OpenSSL to 3.5.0. curl, we updated to 8.13.0. Plink is now at 0.83, and we continue to update the CI root certificates to the latest set. Also, we've updated PxPlus SQL ODBC driver and PxPlus SQL Server to utilize OpenSSL.3.5.0. Both these modules are now at version 8.10.0000. And we've added OAuth 2 authorization support to SMTP and web email utilities. This enhancement replaces the outdated username and password authentication method, aligning PxPlus with modern security standards. This also helps facilitate the seamless integration with cloud-based providers such as Microsoft and Google, and ensures the long-term compatibility and compliance with evolving security requirements. So let's now take a look at some of the language enhancements, specifically with objects and directives. The new dump disable directive was originally added in PxPlus 2023, and its functionality was to suppress variables from being displayed during a dump operation. So with this enhancement, the dump disable directive can now accept pattern strings. This means instead of disabling variables one by one, we can use the pattern to exclude entire groups of variables, both regular variables and global variables. Wildcards such as asterisks and question marks are also supported and can be used anywhere in the pattern string. An asterisk will match any character 0 to many times, whereas the question mark will match a character 1 at a time. I believe this idea came from one of the forum posts. So let's take a look at this and see how this actually works. So here I've got 3 sets of variables that I'm setting up. I'm setting up a global set of variables, both string and numeric. And I've got some other standard variables, string and numeric, and I have a third set of variables here as well. So now when I do the dump, these variables will display here So it'll display all the variables and what their values are. There's other things here in the dump that I'm not displaying here. I just wanted to show you what it would look like just with the variables. And you notice here we got a line, a remark with the global variables, and below we show you all the global variables. So let's start with the same set of global variables. This time, instead of doing the dump, we do a dump disable. And we do a dump disable, and this is where we pass in the pattern string. So the first one I pass in is %var underscore asterisk. Second one I pass in is $_test. So now when I do the dump, the only variables that will display are the two myvar variables. And if we look under the global variables, those global variables are not being displayed because that dump disable. So the def object is used to create external controls such as COM objects and Chromium browser objects. With this directive, you can now directly create and interact with .NET objects. So let's review the syntax for this. So here is the standard def object directive. Here's where I pass in my object handle, and this is where I pass in my optional display coordinates. The object def string is now comprised of the .NET identifier. So if I do .NET in square brackets, that means I'm creating a .NET object. In this string, I put in the .NET DLL name I want to work with, and the object name that's from the .NET DLL. Also, with .NET, you can now pass in an optional set of string and numeric variables to the object. Again, Devin will be going into much more detail in his presentation later this morning. Array lists were first introduced in PxPlus 2021 as dynamically resizable data structures. You can use get or set elements to directly using an index. These are similar to familiar structures in other languages such as C++ vectors and Java array lists. We've expanded its functionality by adding two new methods, appending and inserting. This makes the array list a little bit more flexible and easier to use. So let's take a look at these two methods. The first method is append from array. This adds the values from another array to the end of the array list. And then we have an insert from array. This adds the values from another array at an index in the array list. So let's take a look at an example here. So here I'm creating my two array lists. I've got an animals array list and I've got a numbers array list. To my animals array list, I'm appending two values, cat and dog. So if I was to look at my array list there, it would have cat and dog. To my numbers array list, I'm passing in two numbers. I'm passing in number 1 and number 2. And if I looked at my numbers array list, then that array list would be have a 1 and 2. Now I'm going to append numbers to animals. So the syntax for that is animals tick, append from array, and this is the array that I want to append from. So now when I look at my animals array list, it's made up of cat, dog, 1 and 2. So if I was to do a print animals get $3 in parentheses, where 3 is the index, it returns a 1. Now I want to insert animals into numbers at index 2. So the syntax for that would be numbers tick, insert from array. I pass in the index and I pass in the array I want to insert. When I now look at my numbers array list, I have a 1, cat and dog, and 2. And if I was to do a print number tick get 2 for index 2, it will display cat. The OAuth2 authorization object has been enhanced to support a Microsoft service type for the service property. So with this option, when this option is selected, the system will automatically configure the correct authorization and token URLs for the Microsoft service. So we're just going to look at this example really quick. Here is where I initialize my OAuth2 object, and here is where I set my service property to be Microsoft. So this simplifies the integration by removing the need to manually set those values. To our Excel and Word objects, we've added the ability to bind to an existing running instance of Excel or Word with two new options. This means instead of always launching a new session, you can connect to an open document and work with it directly. Let's look at a couple of examples here. The first example, we can use the running option and to bind to a running instance of Excel if you know that Excel is already running. So here's the syntax for that, and here's the option I would use is running. In the second example, if you're unsure if Excel is running, you can use the running or new option. This will bind to an existing option instance of Excel that's already running, or if there's no Excel running, it will create a new instance. Here is the example of the option. So instead of passing running, I do running or new. Word will work the same way. The Excel object has also been expanded with new methods that will allow direct cell formatting. We've added 3 new methods to this. The first method with 3 is the auto fit all, and the auto fit all property we'll set the auto fit property for all columns and all rows in a worksheet. There are 3 options here. So if I do an auto fit all, this will be the active worksheet. If I do auto fit worksheet, this was where you can specify the worksheet index, and you can do auto fit all with the worksheet name, and this is where you identify it by worksheet by name. We also added an auto fit column. This method sets the auto fit property for columns for a range of cells in a given worksheet. So again, there's 4 options here. The auto fit columns is for the entire worksheet. If I do auto fit columns in parentheses, I can give it a cell range, and the cell range could be something similar to this, A2:D5, which would be the cell range within your Excel spreadsheet. I can also do a cell range and a worksheet index. So I can do a cell range in a specified worksheet index, or I can do a cell range with a specified worksheet name. Similarly to the auto-fit columns, we also added auto-fit rows. And this auto-fit rows property, this is where you assign rows in a range of cells in a given worksheet. Very similar to the columns. Again, there are 4 options here. The Google Sheet object has also been enhanced with new methods for cell formatting. For those who may not know, in PxPlus 2021, we introduced a new PxPlus object to work with Google Workspace, cloud-based applications, Drive, Docs, and Sheets. And similar to Excel, we have added 3 new methods to Google Sheets. The first method is auto fit all with 3 options. I'm not going to go through all these because these are very similar to the Excel object. We have the auto fit columns with 4 options, and we have the auto fit rows with 4 options. Also, the XML object has been extended with new methods, providing greater flexibility when working with XML data. These enhancements make it easier to create, parse, and manipulate XML structure directly within PxPlus. These are the 3 new methods we created. I'm not going to go into detail with this, as you'll learn more about this at Aaron's JSON presentation on Thursday. Let's now review the changes we made to our OAuth utilities for OAuth, or to our utilities for OAuth support. The first one is the web email utility has been enhanced to support OAuth 2 authentication. It now allows an OAuth 2 access token to be passed in directly. Once you get the access token from the OAuth 2 object, you can pass it in directly into the web email. So here's the syntax for the call to web email. At the end to that call, we've added a new optional access token string where you can pass in, and that access token would contain the OAuth 2 access token. And if that string has an access token, OAuth 2 authentication will be used with the SMTP server. If it's blank, there will be no authentication, and the default for this string is blank. So here's an example of where we're going to get the Microsoft Service access token and pass it into the web email. So first we initialize the OAuth 2 object. Then I'm setting what service to use. So I'm going to set this to Microsoft. And then here we have some code here to go through and get the Microsoft access token. Once I get that token from Microsoft, I set my access token variable here. I drop the object, and then I do my call where I pass in that access token into the web email. The web test utility, which was introduced in 2016, is a quick way to send a test email. With just a few options, you can send a test email and see the web email command required to send an email. The test email also displays helpful error messages to quickly help resolve issues. In this enhancement, we added 2 new options to the test name, and we also added the ability to pass in the access token for supporting OAuth 2 authentication. So here's an example of the call, and this is the test name where we've added 2 new options. The first option is AutoAuth underscore SSL test, and that uses the OAuth 2 authentication, and it enables SSL and uses the default SSL/SMTP port 465, and this will connect with encrypted via SSL. The next new option is OAuth underscore start TLS underscore test, and again uses OAuth 2 authentication, uses the start TLS SMTP port 587. This will also encrypt, but it will encrypt via start TLS. And this is the access token you would pass in if you are using one of these two tests. And here is the actual example. So in this example, I'm doing call web test email, and I'm using the I'm using the OAuth start TLS underscore test, and I'm passing in the access token. The next utility for full support with OAuth 2 is the web SMTP utility. And again, this utility, similar to the web email, has the ability to pass in an OAuth access token. So here's an example of the web SMTP utility. We added the access token to the end, same things as the web email, and just here's an example of passing in the access token into it. The web POP3 object was added way back in PxPlus 2014, and it provides a way to connect to a POP3 email server to retrieve emails. It works with any POP3 server, whether using encrypted or unencrypted connections. So this object now supports OAuth 2 authentication, and we added 2 methods to simplify the process of establishing and maintaining secure connections. So we've added the 2 methods. The 2 methods include OAuth connect. To this, you would pass in the server, the user ID, and the access token. And this will connect to the mail server and authenticate via OAuth 2. And this was a non-encrypted. Then we also have a OAuth SSL connect. You pass in the server, the user ID, the access token, and this will connect to the mail server and authenticate via OAuth 2 encrypted. So here's an example of how you would get OAuth 2 access token using this object. We've also added a number of new extended system commands. So the first system command is CLS, and the CLS command will clear your command line editing screen. So if you have lines of code, printed variables, things like that, if you type in CLS, that will go through and clear your screen. You don't have to do a start or a begin or a print CS. The CLS will do that for you. We've also added a new fmgen command, and this will open up an existing file maintenance generator panel, or it will open the file maintenance generator to create a new one. The syntax for that is very simple. You can just type in fmgen, or if you want to open up a specific file maintenance generator panel, you give it the panel name and you give it the library where that panel is located. We did something similar with pop-up. This opens up a pop-up menu definition, or allows you or it opens up the new pop-up menu to be defined. Simple syntax here is you type in pop-up. If you give it the pop-up menu name and the library, it will open up the pop-up menu definition with that pop-up. Same thing with query. If you type in QRY, this will open up an existing query definition or allow you to create a new query. Again, the syntax for that is very similar. Type in QRY. If you just do QRY, it'll open up the definition with nothing defined. If you type in QRY with the query name and the library, it will open that query in the definition. We've also enhanced NOM. So now with NOM, you can open either a file maintenance generated panel or an actual panel in the screen designer. So here in when you type in NOM, if you enter the panel name that is the file maintenance generated panel, you will now get a prompt and you'll get a message asking you, do you want to display this panel using file maintenance generator or whether to use the standard Nomads designer. With Windex, we've enhanced SSH connectivity by introducing additional parameters to the Windex connection manager. We've added a new term field. So this allows you for a selection of terminal type, whether it's WinTerm, XTerm, or ANSI, and you can enter your own terminal as well. The PxPlus path allows you now to set the location of where your PxPlus resides on the server that you want to connect to. We've also added the ability now to launch PxPlus directory when using SSH if all the above are valid and you're able to log in using a valid username and password. So let's now review some of the graphical enhancements that we've done to PxPlus 2025. First, we're going to start with control objects. So control objects are configurable settings that determine how individual objects appear on the screen. Colors, fonts, borders are some of the settings that can be defined for each control to give them a modern look. Control properties are applicable to the following controls. So these are all the various controls where you can set control properties. The great thing about control properties is they can be used for both nomads and for non-nomads applications. Here's a list of the properties that were added in PxPlus 2025. So properties of graphical control objects such as checkboxes, dropboxes, buttons can be accessed and changed dynamically. They are done by using the control's assigned CTL value, followed by the apostrophe operator and one of the associated property names. So let's take a look at a couple of examples here. Here's the first example where we have a Dropbox and we have a state Dropbox. And what we do is we're going to set the associated property name here, and we're going to set this property to use light green. So what this will do is it'll make the frame color for this Dropbox light green. Similarly with a button, we're going to set the property name of border color with red, and this will now, the exit button will now have a border color of red. So let's review all the new properties added. First, we'll start with checkbox. Here's a standard checkbox of what this would look like. So the first property is CB disable frame color, and this sets the frame color for a disabled standard checkbox. So all the properties here that we've added are for standard checkboxes. So in this case here, you can now customize the frame color for a disabled checkbox. We can also, the CB disable mark color, this sets the color for a check mark or the X for a disabled check mark. You can now set the disable back color for a standard checkbox. We now also have an active back color, so you can now set the background color for a standard checkbox. So if I have a checkbox that's checked, I can also now set the background color for that checkbox. We've also added a number of hover properties to checkboxes. The first one is the hover back color. This sets the hover back color for a standard checkbox. So when I hover, I can control that color. Also, I can do the same thing with border color. And I can also do the hover text color. So this will set the hover text color for a checkbox. So when I hover over the checkbox, I can now control the color of the text. For radio buttons, we've done something very similar. Here's a standard radio button. We have RB disable frame color. This will set the frame color for a disabled radio button. And again, these are all standard radio buttons that are impacted. RB disable mark color. This could set the color of the circle for a disabled radio button. Disable back color. I can set the background color for a disabled radio button. And I've got the active back color, so for where I can set the background color for a radio button. And now when my radio button is selected, I can now set the background color. We've also added the same hover properties to a radio button. So we have hover back color, hover border color, and hover text color. So when I hover over a radio button, I can change that text color. For grids, we've introduced a number of new properties. Up here at the top here is a standard grid. First one we added is CB mark color. And this allows you to set the color of the check mark or X in a checkbox within a grid. We also added a header line color, and this allows you to set the border color of the header line. So in this case here, the header of that grid, I can control the border colors. We also added a row header line color, and this sets the border color drawn between the row's header. So in this example here, my row header colors are now blue. And both of these properties only work when the Excel property is set. We've also added a lock back button color, and this sets the background color for locked system-generated buttons, including drop boxes and query buttons. So here's an example of where I can control the background color of those types of controls. We also added a lock foreground button color, and this sets the foreground text. So here, the example above, my foreground text was black. Here is it with it set to white. With drop boxes, we've added the same hover properties to drop boxes. So we have a hover back color, so you can control the background color of a drop box and a variable drop box. You can control the border color of a Dropbox and variable Dropbox, and you can control the text when you hover over a Dropbox and a variable Dropbox. Note in PxPlus 2024, we added the ability to control the drop arrow colors and the drop arrow background colors for both disabled and active Dropboxes. For multi-lines, again, the same three hover properties. So you can control, and these are for Regtext multi-lines as well. So you can control the hover back color, the hover border color. So in this case here, it's a red color, and a hover text color, where I now have a blue for when I hover over my multi-line. So as you can see, we've introduced many new similar properties across various controls, and this ensures that your applications maintain a consistent look and modern feel. We've also added the same grid properties to grid presets in Nomads. So when you define a grid now in Nomads, these properties are available for you to use. I'm not going to go through these properties, but these are the same ones we discussed earlier. So let's now talk about themes and visual classes. Themes and visual classes allow you to standardize appearance across your interface and fine-tune the look and appearance for specific controls. Just to recap, themes are used to set the style for all controls of the same type. They are set globally or through library default or on an individual panel. So as an example here, let's say you have buttons in your applications and you want all your buttons to have a blue background with white text. So you would define a theme with a blue background with white text. Then you would set that theme either globally with a global variable, or you can apply that theme to a library default, or you can apply that theme to a panel header. And when you run your application, all your buttons will have a blue background with white text. Visual classes are used to set the style of individual controls, and visual classes will override the theme. So now that in your application, you've got all blue buttons with white text, you may have certain buttons in your application where you want buttons to look a little bit different. So you want certain buttons, to have, for whatever reason, let's say a gray background with black text. So you would go into visual classes, you would set the visual class up for that button to have a black gray background with black text. Then you would go into a panel and you would set that button control to have that visual class. And when you run that panel will now have, because the visual class will override the theme, that panel will now have a button that's gray with black text. And with visual classes, you can globally set visual classes in your application. You can use library object selection, or there's other various tools within the Nomads environment that you can use to do that. All newly controlled object properties are now fully supported in themes and visual classes, and that just ensures consistency and styling within the interface design. And here is the list of all the themes and visual classes that were modified for PxPlus 2025. So now by adding these new features, we've continued to modernize both the toolkit and your applications, ensuring they stay current, fresh, and future ready. In PxPlus 2024, we added dark and light mode themes to our toolkit to enrich the toolkit experience. So in our system defaults, we've added a new field called Toolkit Theme. And then from the new Toolkit theme, there's a dropdown. And in that dropdown, you can select dark, light, or none, where none is just the standard look. So if I was to select dark, now by setting dark, all my toolkit screens will now be in dark mode. So here's an example of what the system default screen would look like in dark mode. And we took the advantage of the new added properties and applied them to both themes as well. So you notice now in our dark mode themes and light mode themes that we now have background colors for our checkboxes and radio buttons. And to our themes, we also applied a new modern font to both themes. So we are now using Segoy UI in our themes, and this makes our screens look much cleaner within these two themes. So as you can see, these screens demonstrate a wide range of customization capabilities you can use, giving the flexibility to tailor and your applications to fit your needs. Using tools like Copy Theme Utility introduced in PxPlus 2024 allows the creation of multiple themes and allows the ability to create your own dark and light mode theme by using our system themes. So as an example here, once you go into Copy Theme, there's a checkbox here that says Use PxPlus Themes. If you check that, it will allow you to copy our themes into one of your themes or one of your newly created dark mode themes. So as an example here, I say I want to copy from dark, and I want to copy to theme, and I want to copy this to my dark, which would be one of your themes. And this will then copy all our dark mode themes into my dark theme that you can use in your application. Control object properties, themes and visual classes, and option mnemonics, which we haven't discussed at this presentation, are all designed for one goal in mind: to improve your application's interface. At last year's directions, we demonstrated how these tools can be applied, regardless of whether your application is built with nomads or non-nomads. Even using themes and visual classes, which is typically a nomads tool, you can also use non-nomads applications. You can see more of that on how we did that in the application look and feel from our directions presentation of last year. With the introduction of IDE in PxPlus 2014, projects have always been an integral part. Since then, we have continued to enhance the capability of projects. We have now taken projects a step further by adding project capability to the Nomad Session Manager, or when you type in NOM at the command line. We have now added a new projects menu at the top, and by clicking that menu, there's now a drop-down of various different project menu items that you can choose. Once you set your project in here, the project is now displayed at the top. And by setting your project, when you set that project, the current directory is automatically used as the working directory. So if you were to go into dictionary or library, whatever data dictionary files you have in that directory will display in there automatically. Here are some useful links. We have 2 help links here. We have working with projects. We have the benefits of using projects. And here's a link to our how to use projects within the Nomad Session Manager. Let's now review some of the progress bar enhancements we added in 2025. We've redesigned the standard progress bar, giving it a more modern and refined appearance. It improves the visual interface, but also provides a cleaner and more professional look. Here's what the progress bar used to look like. Here's what it looks like now. So we've added a white background. We've moved the cancel button to below the progress bar. We have now a flatter, more modern progress bar appearance. And we move the percentage indicator inside the progress bar. The progress bar now can also be customized because we've added 5 new global variables. So let's take a look at what these 5 new global variables do. The first one is progbar underscore color. This will allow you to customize the color of the progress bar meter. We have progbar back color. This controls the background color of the dialog. We have progbar font, and this is the font and text used for the cancel button. We have progbar percent color, and that's the color of the percentage indicator. And finally, we have a progbar text color. This is the color of the text, but this does not affect the color of the cancel button. These global variables can be set anytime before you initialize the progress bar, and you can use a number of different ways to select a color. You can use the standard 16 colors that are available. You can use custom RGB colors. You can use user-defined colors, or you can use the hex color code as well. So let's take a look at a customized custom bar. So the first one is the prog bar back color. This is where I set the background color to be light gray. Next is the progbar text color. This sets the text color to be green. Here I'm using the RGB color set. We have progbar font. Here we're setting the font to be Algerian, just so they can sort of see that, this Algerian font is kind of funky, so you can sort of see that it looks what it looks like. This sets both the text and the cancel button font. We have the progbar color. This sets the progbar color. Here we're using an HTML color, long green. And finally, we have progbar percentage color, where we're using the standard white color to define that color. So here are some useful links for the progbar. Using the progbar goes to our help. We have a how-to, which will show you how to customize the progress bar with the colors. And we have a video here shows you how to use the progress bar and how to customize it as well. So now let's review the new crate-based WebSphere+ utility that was introduced in PxPlus 2025. This utility is designed to help transition existing applications into a web environment. It takes Nomad's panels and generates the foundation for corresponding WebSphere+ HTML pages. Where possible, information from the panel is converted to WebSphere+ shortcodes. However, not everything that is supported in Nomads has an existing shortcode or option in WebSphere+. There are 2 ways to convert. You can convert individual panels, or you can convert multiple selected panels. And just as a note here, the WebSphere pages directory must first be defined in the screen library before you can convert any panel. So let's see how you can convert an individual panel. First, we open library object selections in Nomads. From the list, we select a panel we want to convert. Once I select that panel, I click on right-click, and this will display a pop-up. And at the bottom, we now have a new option called Crate-Based WebSphere+ Page. When I select that, it will convert the panel, and once it converts the panel, you will get a confirmation message will be displayed. You can also convert multiple panels at one time. So again, let's go through this. So again, library object selection, but instead of going to selecting individual panels down here, I now go up to the top. I go up to the WebSphere+ in the top menu bar. I drop that menu down, and I select Crate-Based WebSphere Pages. Once I select that, it will go through and display the utility. When that utility displays, it will display all dialogues and window type panels within a grid from the screen library, with the exception of file managed generated panels and query and pop-up objects. I can then go and select each panel individually by selecting the checkbox beside each panel. Or if I want to do all panels, I click on the select all, and this will select all the panels. Once I'm ready to convert, I can just hit the convert button and it will go through and convert all those panels. So once the conversion is complete, both an HTML file and a supporting program file is created for every panel. For HTML files, the HTML file is added to the Webster Pages directory as defined in the screen library. For every panel converted, an HTML page is created using a panel name with the HTML suffix. So here's an example, is the panel name.html. For panels with folders, only one HTML file is created containing the shortcodes for all folder tabs. For programs, an associated program is created using the panel name and the WBS suffix. So in addition to creating the HTML file, we also create the program, and that's using the same structure for naming, panel name.wbs. The program is copied to a directory as determined by any prefix rules you may have. And empty method names are created for handling Nomad's event logic, logic defined for controls, such as when button press events logics for buttons and on change event for multi-lines. So what controls are converted? Buttons, charts, only smart charts, checkboxes, drop boxes, fixed and fonted text, folders, frames, only frames that are one line high or below, grids, shapes, only shapes that are horizontal lines, images, list boxes, multi-lines, and radio buttons. What is not converted? Shapes other than horizontal lines, frames only with heights of more than one. They're not converted. Horizontal scroll bars, vertical scroll bars, charts not loaded with smart load, external controls, and embedded panels. Also, some elements are not converted for a panel and individual controls, as some of these just do not translate properly to run on the web. For a panel, the pre-display, post-display, and on-exit logic are not converted. Foreground and background colors, the precise layout, themes, and dependencies. For controls, post-create, and when receiving focus logit, background colors and checkboxes and radio buttons, visual classes, and the italics font for multi-lines. As I said, some of these do not translate to run on the web, and also a lot of these visual controls are controlled by using a style sheet. So for converter programs, common elements are added to each individual program. We first add a Webster Plus bind line with the path name to the bound HTML page. So in the program, we create this line, and this is the actual HTML file that the program will use. Also, a handle event section is added. It contains logic needed to intercept events for changes to the web page and to send control to the proper methods. We'll see some of these examples later when we convert an actual panel. As mentioned earlier, methods for controls with event logic are created and added to the WBS program. So button controls with a when button pressed event logic will result in a method called event underscore control name pressed, where the control name is the name of the button. So as an example here, this is the name of my button, close underscore button, and the event name would be something like this, event underscore close button pressed. For other controls, the on change event logic will result in a method called event underscore the control name changed, and this is where the control name is the name of the control. In this example, the vendor number is the name of my control, and the event here would be called event underscore vendor number and changed. So the above event methods are created with the following. We create the method label, which would be this example up here. We then create a remark, line indicating what the logic of that event was. So that logic could either be perform, a call, an execute. So whatever that extent logic was in the specific event, we create a remark for that. And we also create an exit statement. So we just as a note here, you need to go through and review the Nomads code, indicate it, and translate it to run appropriately with PxPlus. So let's now convert a sample panel. We're going to create a sample print invoice panel here, as you see, and the name of that panel is called INV_PRT. So once converted, it will create an HTML file and a program. So here's an example of the HTML file it creates. So it creates INV_PRT.html, which is using that name of the panel. And then it creates INV_PRT.wbs, which is the name of the program. So once I run the conversion, after the conversion, the panel would look something like this. So you can see the panel has a number of issues. So we need to go through and clean up some of the information on each of these panels and the program. So first, we need to remove any shortcodes created for controls that are not converted. And these are identified by a red shortcode mess here. We also need to remove any unsupported controls. So here, any controls that are not supported will display in red. So those will need to be removed from the HTML file. We need to correct alignment by removing the non-breaking spaces. We need to assign shortcodes for third quarter and flex sections as usual, as desired. We need to fine-tune the file as needed. So here is a converted HTML page after conversion. Some of these issues will require further review and changes. So let's review what were some of the issues. So first of all, it converted the layout into whole sections approximately to the line values in Nomads. The query path did not quite convert properly. The frame control, as we saw earlier, did not get converted. The radio default was not correct, and we need to go back and change. And the non-breakable spaces were added after every control. We will fix these issues in the upcoming slides. I've been told that I'm sort of running out of time here, so I need to quickly go through some of these. Here is a supporting program that was created after the conversion. This is where we create our Webster bind line, and that's pointing to the associated HTML page program file. Here's my handle event sections, and here's my two event methods that are being created in the program. As you can see here, the event, we have event underscore invoice number change, and here is where we put the perform logic in a remark. So let's review the changes we need to make to the HTML file. So we need to we removed the frame and replaced it with a HR. We corrected the query path. We removed unnecessary NBs, non-breakable spaces. We adjusted the section shortcode. We added some BRs and HRs for spacing, and we fixed the radio button default. For the program, we removed Nomads. We removed remarks referencing the Nomads code. We replaced method based on the existing Nomads code. We added additional methods as needed. So we added a new validate invoice method. We added a new Webster message box to, once the print is completed, a message box will display in Webster. And we fixed the radio button values. So now, once all these changes are made, and I run my page, it would look something similar to this. So all the problems in this page have now been resolved. The query is now functioning correctly. When I click the query button, I get my query. When the invoice entry is being validated based on the validate invoice routine I added, the radio buttons are added, now working correctly, and the print button is working correctly. So as you can see, with some additional effort, we can make some of the Nomads panels work on PxPlus. Here are some useful links. Links to our help. You can look at the crate-based Webster pages. This doc has a lot more examples and a lot more details in terms of how this utility will work. Here is a link to our standard Webster Plus documentation page. We have 2 Webster videos you can take a look at. You can also take Webster for a test drive, and you can click on this link. And when you get access to the demo, it's your own personal demo area, and you can take a look how Webster works. And the nice part of this is your demo, and it will not impact anybody else. And within the test page, we also have a zip file and a TAS file with sample HTML pages and programs and data used for the demo. So you can take a look at individual HTML pages and programs and see how we did Webster. Couple of last slides here. We did some health improvements. We enhanced the user interface. We updated the navigation bar. We updated the main page with links to additional resources. We added 11 how-to tutorials, 5.NET, 3 JSON, 3 miscellaneous. We added 11 new videos, and we also reorganized our YouTube channel, and we created better playlists. So the videos that you see are in logical playlists. Here are some useful links. Here's a link to our how-to tutorial main page. This link will take you to the main tutorial page where you can then go to and look at all the other tutorials. A link to our PxPlus YouTube channel, our PxPlus Knowledge Center. And here I just included as a bonus, this is a how-to speed up grid loading and processing how-to that we created. And this is part of the 3 miscellaneous enhancements or miscellaneous how-tos that we did. And finally, PxPlus 2025 Update 1 is scheduled for an early November release. Here are some of the number of new enhancements and fixes. The new AI Assistant chat box will be available. We will add the new AI Assistant chat box to help. We will also add the new AI Assistant to the IDE. You will also be able to run AI Assistant from the command line by typing in AI. For JSON, we have a number of new methods that we're adding, and we've enhanced a number of the current methods. We've added a couple of miscellaneous enhancements here, and we've also added some various fixes with this release as well. You'll learn more about the AI and the JSON stuff in their applicable presentations later tomorrow and Thursday. Once this is released, you can take a look at the release notes and see all the details that are in this release. So thank you. Hope you all enjoyed the presentation.